Welcome back to the channel. Today the road takes us to the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado. Today we'll be taking a walking tour around seeing some of the sights. I'll put a link below to the tour company I'm using. Again, thanks for watching, thanks for being here. If you're not, please subscribe, give us a like, give us a follow, and let's check out downtown Denver.
About myself, and then I'll talk a little bit about our tour, give you some time to get used to this voice. You will be hearing a lot of it over the next few hours. So like I said, yes, very good guesses. I'm seeing some very noble guesses. I like it. The one that has 1 mile above sea level engraved on it. But I'm a professional, and I would not make it that easy for you smart people. Have you just go stand on the stair that says it. You'll notice if you take a look, there's actually 3 stairs that indicate 1 mile above sea level. So yep, there's that little medallion up on that top one, a few stairs up. That one is from 1906 when the building was first built. And then this lovely engravement here was done in 1969. And then they added a third one right on this step here back in, I believe, 2003. Group of researchers from Colorado State University were not pleased with the other 2, decided we had to have a third measurement. Very true Colorado fashion. We cannot seem to agree where 1 mile above sea level is, but it does really matter to everybody. I've seen a newspaper article just a few months ago where they were talking about adding a 4th marker for where 1 mile above sea level is, which I think is insane. People love to have their different theories about why there's all the different markers, you know, and they're like the sea level's rising, but then the markers would be rising and the markers are sinking. So I just think it's about like accuracy. I have no idea how back in 1906 they were going about measuring 1 mile above sea level in Denver, Colorado, so I have a lot of grace for the process here. Yeah, while we're standing here, I'm seeing some people noticing this lovely view. You can see the mountains poking up behind the city and county building there. The kind of view that made a man abandon his life back in the 1850s. It's pretty good. I'll refer back to that view later, but in the meantime, soak it in.
So, fun fact, Colorado actually means the color red, and it's known for this red tile. This red, which is everywhere in Colorado, red rock, amphitheater. This gate has all the state symbols, state dinosaur, go ahead, state fish, state butterfly, their state. Dinosaurs, of course, the Stegosaurus. And just found out that when they were digging Coors Field to make the stadium for the Rockies, they found a complete Triceratops under where home plate is, which is why their mascot is a little Triceratops. And they wanted to call the field Jurassic Park, but Coors said, no, we paid for it, so we're going to name it Coors Field.
Governor Jared Polis, that dog is upset. Jared Polis lives in Boulder, but works here in Denver. We've also got like state senate going on in there, lots of different government offices. Kind of the legislative and executive.
This is the Colorado Supreme Court. This building is about 20 years old, but it's made with the same marble as the other buildings. Over here is the Veterans Memorial. Over behind the Denver Post over here is the tallest building in Colorado at 54 stories. It's a privately owned bank building. 54 stories.
One of my favorite pieces of public art in Denver. It was originally designed to go in front of an elementary school in New York City, but they decided that they did not like it and they did not want it. And then through like the art world, rigmarole, hustle bustle, it ended up here in Denver in front of our public library. And I'm very thankful for this. I think it works really well in Denver. We have a lot of Western motifs, a lot of horse imagery throughout our city. So I think it fits right in there. This is a piece about perspective. So it's meant to represent the perspective of a child. As a kid, you only see horses like in books and on TV and maybe like driving, and you see horses out of the car. They look small, right? But chairs, you see chairs every day. And if you're like a small kid, you see a big chair right next to you. Chairs seem really big. So the idea is like big chair with a small horse, because it's kind of how a child would make this piece of art. Fun, whimsical, and works well with the public library there. I'll stop here. I'll have everyone stand kind of in between these two light shows. Library. Back in the 1990s, Denver voters passed a $91 million bond to renovate our entire public library infrastructure, build a bunch of new branches, renovate some branches. So that's where this guy came from. It is huge, and it was expensive. Has materials imported from Europe, so it takes on kind of like an Italian architectural style. Huge genealogy department, huge Western history department. The Denver Public Library System also has a really great African American research library in Rhino, that's our River North Arts District, chronicling the history of Black people in this part of the country and in Denver specifically. I love the public libraries. Anything this building looks like to anybody? Any vibes anyone gets off of it, or anything it kind of seems like to anyone? An accordion. I love that. It does kind of look like that. Got like pleats and folds in there.
Like a castle or a fortress?
Beautiful. Great answer. Castle or fortress. I love that. Anything else?
A prison.
Indeed. This building gets prison a lot. Probably the thing it's most compared to. Something about like the shiny gray exterior, and the narrow windows and the proximity to the government buildings. It kind of seems like a prison. It is not a prison. This is the main branch of the Denver Art Museum. The architect Gio Ponti was very specific with the way he designed it. He said he wanted it to look like a fortified castle, right on. It doesn't look super castle-y to me from this angle, but from some other angles it does. Gio Ponti was a very prolific Italian architect. He's done hundreds of buildings all over the world. This is his only building in America, though. Don't know how he decided on this one, but thankful for it. Like I said, he was very specific with his design. So this gray, shiny exterior is meant to reflect the sun. Colorado boasts 300 days of sunshine a year. Some people debate that. But generally very sunny place. And with an art museum, you want to keep it cold. So these reflective tiles keep the sun off the building and keep their cooling costs low. The windows are also kind of related to the sun. They're meant to shine the light in really specific places on the inside of the building, so they don't have light on the art, The windows are also meant to frame things in specific ways. So if you're like standing in the museum, surrounded by art, the idea is like you look out the window and it's like framing a view. So it'll like frame a view of the Capitol that would look like a painting, or a view of the mountains that would look like a landscape painting. Nice little touch there. So that building's also part of the art museum. All of these buildings are connected by a nice walkway. That's the Frederick C. Hamilton building. I have heard a few different things about why it was designed the way that it is. I've heard that it mimics the rugged, rough edges of the Rocky Mountains. So it's supposed to look like a mountain range. I can see that. I've also heard that it was meant to look like the crystalline structures that miners would have seen down in the caves. So if you could kind of imagine flipping that upside down, you could see it hanging from the ceiling of a cave. I like that. And I've also heard that the architect designs by crumpling up a piece of paper and then uncrumpling it and seeing how it unfolds and basing his design off of that. The truth is probably somewhere in between.
It's a weird rivalry. I don't think we can break like
Cool. So this is the Denver City and County building. I'm going to talk about it in just a second, but I'm going to start by talking about Civic Center Park, which we just kind of walked off. So this is the City and County building, like I said. It's our city hall. It's curved like this to kind of cap off Civic Center Park, make it feel like a contained little unit. But it's also curved to preserve the view of the Rocky Mountains from the steps of the Capitol. If you'll remember a little bit ago, we were standing on those steps looking at the mountains poking up from behind this building. If this building was straight, you would not be able to see the mountains, and it mattered to the architects that they preserve that, so they curved the building. Very nice. Like I said, crown jewel on Spear's City Beautiful movement. Sadly, he did not live to see it completed. Spear died in 1917 of another pandemic that was raging the world at the time. Any guess on this one? The Spanish flu, absolutely. It's kind of said that Spear was working as mayor, doing his thing, and then one day he went home and just bit it. Died very unexpectedly of the Spanish flu. So I mentioned a nice gold eagle on the top of this building. I'm going to point it out now. You got the clock tower. That was donated by Kate Spear, Robert Spear's widow. It is the Robert Spear Memorial Clock Tower, and the times are not accurate. All the faces say different things, but that's not really our problem. Up on top, you see that eagle statue. That eagle is the source of some hot Denver urban mythology. So legend kind of goes that Stapleton or Spear commissioned a man named Joseph Nicolosi to make this piece. And Joseph Nicolosi was kind of the anarchist, anti-government type who maybe also had some personal beef with Robert Spear. So they commissioned him to make this statue, and he made it in the position that birds make when they are defecating, which is to say, literally pooping on the government. Pretty good. This story was so prolific amongst Denver people, the type who would care about that kind of thing, that a few years ago, a group of researchers took to the Denver Zoo, specifically to watch the eagles and to watch them poop and pee and see what positions they make. And what they found is kind of what we all already know. Birds don't poop in one position. Birds poop while flying, birds poop while sitting. They don't squat like this to poop necessarily. So it is kind of mythology, kind of rumor, hearsay, but it's a great story. And I love that it made scientists spend time and money and resources on watching eagles poop. I think that's amazing. So I'll certainly point it out. We'll have people walking past on the sidewalk, but that's it. So this building is a new one to Denver. It is still under construction, but it is going to be a hotel called the Populace. They are marketing as an eco hotel, very environmentally friendly. The idea is kind of most buildings are carbon positive, right? Most buildings emit carbon into the atmosphere. Some buildings are carbon neutral, not emitting any carbon. They're saying this building is going to be carbon negative. So not only not emitting any carbon into the atmosphere, but actively detracting from carbon emissions. And they're planning on doing this a few different ways. They planted a bunch of aspen trees in an aspen forest. They're doing geothermal heating and cooling. These panels are very environmentally friendly. It's white, so just like the art museum, doesn't attract a lot of heat. and these overhangs are meant to be very efficient at keeping it heating and cooling. There's also no parking, so if you're gonna drive, do not. You cannot park it here. That's part of their environmental thing. My favorite fact that I've learned about this hotel is that for the last year, they have been recording the noises of an aspen forest all year round, and they're gonna play those sounds in the lobby of this hotel, like seasonally. So if you're here in the winter, you will hear the sounds of the aspen forest in the winter, and if you're here in the summer, you will get a very different soundscape and hear the sound of that forest in the summer. Money that circulates throughout the United States, the federal mint, they make coins. One of two mints in America that makes coins that are actively circulating. Anyone know where the other one is? Philadelphia, yeah. Nice. Not even American. I like it. Very impressive, yeah. Just Denver and Philly making coins that actively circulate. There's like 5 mints total. There's one San Francisco, West Point, New York. But they just do like storage and educational endeavors and maybe making like commemorative money. So Denver having a mint goes back to the 1860s when we were a mining town. So people would kind of live in Denver, then they would take this road right here, Colfax. It was originally called the Golden Road. They take it up into the mountains and go mining. You know, take whatever you found. Hopefully it was gold. It probably wasn't. Our gold rush was not very successful in Denver or in Colorado. But hopefully you take your gold, you come back into the city, and you go to something called an assay office. And these assay offices would kind of like weigh your metal and verify it, tell you what you brought them and how much of it you had. One of these assay offices, Clark Gruber and Company, got the bright idea to start minting coins out of the gold people brought them. And then due to the nature of economic flow, these gold coins eventually make their way to Washington, D.C., the government center. And they were not pleased by this. They said, you don't make the money in Denver, we make the money in D.C., please stop this. And their solution was to buy out Clark Gruber and Company and set up a federal mint. So that's how we kind of got a federal mint in Denver to this day. Absolutely it has been. There are two very notable robberies in the mint's history we're going to get into today, both dating back to the 1920s. So the first one was an inside job done by a worker named Orville Harrington. Harrington was a graduate from the Colorado School of Mines in Golden, which is a really good engineering school, one of the best in the country. And he always had really big dreams for himself as an engineer. Thought he was going to do great things. But after he graduated, he found that he could not get a job. No one wanted to hire him as an engineer. That's because Harrington was being discriminated against. Harrington was an amputee. He had lost one of his legs from a gunshot wound during childhood, and this was back in the 1800s. They were very amputation happy, pretty much ready to lop off a limb at the first sign of anything going wrong. So they cut that leg off, and he lived his life as an amputee, and then faced workplace discrimination. Even with his big, fancy engineering degree, nobody wanted to hire him as an engineer, and the only job he could find was as a menial factory worker here at the Mint, just working on the assembly line, making money. And Harrington was very bitter about this. He always expected more from life and more from himself. He thought he deserved more. And if you're really bitter and you're really smart, which Harrington was, you have an excellent recipe to do crime in your workplace. So, legend kind of has it, Harrington engineered himself a fake leg that had a flap in it, and he used that flap to steal gold bars off of the assembly line, popped him in the leg. Some versions of the story say it was in his jacket pocket, gold in the jacket pocket, but either way, the fact that he was an amputee and already had a limp hit the fact that he was lugging home 8-pound gold bars from work every day, back to his apartment here on Capitol Hill, where he buried them in his front yard. If you're stealing gold from your government job, you can't go and sell it or trade it or anything, so he buried it. I heard from a fellow tour guide once that it was Harrington's plan to buy an abandoned mine in the mountains with a hollowed out gold vein. He was going to melt down all the gold, fill the vein, and then pretend he struck rich naturally. I think that's insane, personally. I think there's no way that would have worked. But we'll never know, because Harrington did not make it that far. He got caught. Another coworker caught onto his scheme and ratted him out, told on him. He got the old pat down on his way home from work one day, and they figured out what he was onto. They found all the gold. He had stolen 53 gold bars, which is about $2 million today. So tons of money. And for all of that, he only got 3.5 years in prison. So arguably kind of worth it, at least for the thrill. Seems fun. That was in 1920. The next robbery was just 2 years later, 1922. It was organized crime, by which I mean gang violence. We are talking 1920s Prohibition-era gangsters, the flat-brimmed hats and the long jackets and the cigars, that kind of gangster. I'm using organized crime to refer to that. The crime itself was not organized. So basically, we're on Cherokee here, on the corner of Cherokee and 14th right down there. There was a money truck pulled up, and they were loading money from the mint into the truck. It was $5 bills. They made bills at that time. Black car pulls up, 5 guys with guns jump out, start shooting at the mint worker, kill him, take a bunch of money, get in the car, and drive away. Very straightforward crime, but for as straightforward as it was never solved. They did find the car parked nearby, one of the perpetrators dead, and some of the money, and they linked that back to some organized crime in Minnesota, but they never found most of the perpetrators or most of the money. They got away with stealing like $200,000, so good for them, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, no, just the one. 4 guys, because the one guy was dead, you know. Cool. We are going to make our way out of this kind of something like the 17th largest convention center in the world. It is massive in here. It is attached to a big organic farm as well called Blue Bear Farms. They make hundreds of tons of produce every year that is distributed to restaurants in the area, as well as sold inside the convention center. This building was finished back in like 2005, and the first event it held was an NBA draft. Very on brand for Denver, being a sports-obsessed city in the way that we are. It's pretty new, being built in 2005, so there's not too much juicy history to share yet. They always get tons of major conventions every year, though. Comic-Con always comes through. Great American Beer Festival is a big draw, and they have a big rave every New Year's Eve as well. I think this would be a wild place to rave, but no judgment. Cool. I'll talk about what we all are here for now, this gigantic blue bear statue. So this thing is called Big Blue Bear. Everyone who lives in Denver calls it Big Blue Bear. You will never hear it called by its actual name. But it is an official piece of art with a title, and that title is I See What You Mean. Because it's like looking in, engaging with the convention center. It's like, oh, I see what you mean, I suppose. You'll notice that it's not actually touching the windows, though. There's some buffer space there. It's because Big Blue Bear is made of fiberglass. Do you want to give it a little knock? Yep, it's completely hollow in there. So it sways in the wind a little bit. So they wanted to give it some buffer space, so on windy days it wouldn't be banging up against the glass. So it has a little space to wiggle.
So something cool I just learned, that's the Big Blue Bear right there, is that they passed a law several years ago that any building that costs more than $1 million to build has to put money aside for city art, which is why you see so much city art like Big Blue Bear. It's great. It's a great town. I'm glad I did this tour. Again, if you're here, it's a free tour. They do offer paid tours. I'll put the link in the description. Let's go on to the next thing. There's Big Blue Bear from far away.
Let's bring it in a little bit here. It gets kind of echoey here. I don't want to yell too much. I'll yell a little bit though. Cool. This is the Denver Performing Arts Complex. I'm going to start by talking about these two beautiful pieces of art behind me. I love these guys. These are by a Colombian artist named Fernando Botero, very prolific Latin American artist, has worked all around Latin America, all around around the world. He mostly does paintings, and all of his art kind of looks like this. Cool, like squishy figures, playing with dimension and proportion and stuff like that. We are very lucky to have these. They are very creatively titled Man and Woman. And they were part of the Denver Performing Arts Complex. Like their public arts initiative budgets went to these guys when the building was built. We are right next to the Denver Auditorium, was what this building once was. It has been retitled, but it was originally the Denver Auditorium. It was built as part of Spears' City Beautiful movement. Back in 1908, this building held the Democratic National Convention, which is fun because in 2008, the convention center held the Democratic National Convention. That was a big year for the Democrats, so another fun little 100-year cycle in Denver's history there. But it's been repurposed as part of the Performing Arts Complex. We are in the second largest performing arts complex in the country. Any guess on where the first one is?
New York?
Yes, absolutely. Lincoln Center, New York City. But we come in a close second. It is 4 acres and 11 theaters in this place. So this is the Opera House. We've got the Buell Theater where the traveling Broadway productions come to. There's a theater in the round for Shakespeare performances. There's a dance hall. There are small theaters for local productions. Pretty much whatever kind of theater you can imagine, it is probably in this area. Do we have any theater lovers in the crowd? I'm definitely one. Okay, a little bit. This is where I get to tell what I think is my favorite Denver history story. I'm obviously a Denver history nerd. I can talk about Denver history for hours, and I call a lot of stories my favorite, but I am pretty sure this one's actually my favorite. This is the story of a woman named Antoinette Perry. Antoinette Perry was born and raised in Denver in the late 1800s, and she's always performing. Pretty much for as long as Denver has had a city, we have had theater in some capacity, and Antoinette was always on stage singing, acting, dancing, and doing something. But she was a woman living at the turn of the century, so she kind of ends up doing what all women at the time did. She meets a man, and she marries him, and she has his children, and kind of stops doing everything she was doing in her life to dedicate her life to supporting his life. Just the way of the world back then, right? And then in 1920, her husband dies of a heart attack, and Antoinette wastes no time. She gets right back to theater, back to performing, moves out to New York City and starts performing on Broadway, has a few lead roles, but is more interestingly working behind the scenes. This is a time before women were commonly working behind the scenes of theaters. Like, women were maybe making props or costumes, but they weren't doing that creative, initiative-driven directorial work. Antoinette's credited as one of the first female directors on Broadway, and she's also starting different institutions for Broadway people, and is kind of part of defining what it means to be Broadway. She's a big part of that process. She dies in 1946, and the Broadway community decides they want to do something to honor her, so they name an award after her. The award debuts in 1947. It is called the Antoinette Perry Award for Excellence in Broadway Theater. But that is a mouthful, and nobody is saying all of that. So the award goes by its nickname, which is also her nickname, Dame Antoinette, nickname Tony, and those are the Tony Awards. Yeah, named after a woman, and a Denver woman nonetheless. Made by little theater kid Hurt seemed to hear that story the first time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool. We are going to head down.
Such a beautiful city, so much different kinds of architecture.
I didn't realize this was.
Sorry, I'm taking pictures.
The oldest still standing building in Denver. It's from 1873, which is old for America. Europeans, I know you guys have buildings older than our country, but whatever, we're proud of this. And also has these nice little like figures on the ceiling so I can use for some storytelling here. So I'm gonna start with the gentleman in the blue suit, going like this. That is William. That's called the D&F Tower. It was originally part of the May, Daniels, and Fisher department store. So you can kind of see like a third of the way up where the building changes colors. Originally there's a department store jutting out from there. A huge fancy department store, the kind that like you dress up to go to. And there were women working behind all the counters. The women actually lived in the clock tower part and went to school there during the day. Some of their schooling being vocational training for their work in the department store. This is like the 1880s to 1930s range. Then the department store closed, they tore it down. They wanted to raise the whole tower, but Dana Crawford and some other citizens of Denver came together to save that tower. It's now a historical landmark. It's under some strict historic preservation, as is a lot of the buildings in this area.
That clock tower right there behind me at one time was the tallest building east of the Mississippi, sorry, west of the Mississippi. People come from miles around to look at that clock tower. This is a 16th Street mall. This entire mall was designed by I.M. Pei, the architect. He did the pyramid outside the Louvre in Paris. He also designed this. Normally, there are two streetcars that go up and down this, but down at the end they are doing construction to remove lead water pipes. So when that's done, they'll have the streetcars going back up and down. Cool bridge down there. This is a robotic coffee shop. There's nobody here. Put your money in, you place your order, and they make it. This is Rockmount. It's the oldest existing store in Denver since the 40s. They invented like fancy Western wear. People like Elvis, Willie Nelson got clothes from here. The owner ran it until he was 106 years old. The family still owns it. And they invented the button-up shirt with snaps instead of buttons. Only in Denver.
the Oxford Hotel, oldest continually operating hotel in Denver. Been open since 1881. Tons of fun facts about this place. All of the hotels are like 6 feet wide because they're meant to be wide enough for two women in their big Victorian dresses to be able to walk side by side. They have a canary at the front desk. Her name is Florence. It's in honor of how miners would bring canaries down into the mines with them, and the canary would sing when they were low on oxygen. It's also connected to a bar, the oldest continually operating bar in Denver, called the Cruise Room. It originally opened at the same time as the hotel, and it was said that instead of paying for your drinks in money, drinks would cost a pinch of gold dust. So they were kind of known for hiring bartenders with really big, meaty hands to make the most out of them. The bar officially opened in 1933, the day after Prohibition ended, which is to say it was open all through Prohibition as an illegal speakeasy. Pretty much all of downtown Denver was connected by a series of underground tunnels, and that made it really easy for this place to stay open. Smuggling alcohol right into the building, they stayed open the whole time. Very cool spot, another nice little example of living history in Denver. Another really fun spot to go in, check out the lobby, I love it here. And the Cruise Room is still a great bar to this day, great martinis.
The butterfly in the bottom is the state butterfly of Colorado.
So this is Union Station. We are gonna cross and we are gonna go inside. But while we're standing here, I'm gonna point out a few things. So you've got the Crawford Hotel, named after Denver legend Dana Crawford, who we've been talking about. Not only named by her, but also owned by her. That's owned present tense. She currently owns the Crawford Hotel and the Oxford Hotel because she is still alive in her 90s,
Awesome.
still being really cool, doing good preservationist work. You also see two dates on this place. On the side about 1880 and on the other side 1914. I'm going to refer to those dates later on, but just pointing them out while we're out here. Everyone has the right idea when taking pictures. If you want a picture of this building, do it on this side. Once we cross the street, you will be too close. And cars have to stop for us here.
Thank you. Wow.
No,
All right, and that is our walking tour of Denver. We are here in the terminal bar, and the hotel is upstairs. Trains are outside. It's great. It's about 2.5 hours. I highly recommend it. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be taking the free bus. They have a free bus in Denver back to my hotel. And see what else happens. So thanks for watching. Again, if you're new, please subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you next time when we see where the road takes us. Take care.